Hey everyone, welcome back to the Joel Bine Show. Thanks for being here. So, when it comes to business flourishing, it behooves us to liberate ourselves of the blocks and beliefs that are directly contributing to friction in our personal experience and our inner experience, as well as friction in our outcomes of our business. Now, I like to emphasize that it's intrinsically beneficial to liberate yourself from your suffering, and that it's a beautiful gift to yourself to let go of these beliefs rapidly and permanently that are creating the negative self-talk, that are creating the fear of failure, that are creating anxiety, that are creating insecurity, lack of confidence, just overworking, and just hustle grind. And this constant inner critic, it's just so normalized, right? In the culture to just have the inner critic. And it's a beautiful gift to yourself to liberate yourself, to liberate the inner critic. Inner critic's just the party that's been seeking to help you all these years since you were a child, to try to adapt to the situation, create a belief, an adaptation to the family or the school or the religious institution or the community or whatever the cultural expectations that were not fully serving you, and you were adapting in order to get love, safety, and belonging, and so forth. And those inner critics are there because they were hatched and birthed once upon a time in order to help you. I think people actually assume that they're there since you're just because you're a human, but it's like they weren't there when you were a newborn infant. They started getting created as you attempted to figure out the world. But the world doesn't need to be like that, right? The world is ever shifting, right? And so you created these absolute concrete beliefs in order to make sense of the world, but they were just temporary solutions, and they're not actually true, right? The beliefs about it's not okay to fail, or the beliefs about I'm not doing enough, or I'm not worthy of success, and these sort of limitations were created. And so what I'm saying is, when it comes to liberating yourself and the benefits of that, it's intrinsically beautiful. It's a beautiful gift to let go. It's absolutely stunning. It's been about 5 years since I started liberating myself with this particular approach of belief liberation. And I'm just very content and grateful that I have this technology available to me. I literally just cleared another belief for myself 10 minutes ago. Because, I noticed a slight fear sensation in my body. It was like, well, why do I have that belief? And then I found a reason. I found a belief. And it was a very specific belief. It was a very, a different variation of a money belief that I hadn't found before. So I was like, oh, I just liberated myself. Now I'm feeling better. It's great. So it's a beautiful technology now. There's this desire for everyone to be able to do that, to be able to liberate themselves. And it just is there's so much calmness and stillness and freedom and security and relaxation and confidence that emanate when you let go and you integrate these parts of yourself. And so when it comes to business, that's right there. All the self benefits of just self well-being obviously are going to help your business, right? Obviously, it's going to help your business to have a calmer being to have a quieter mind, to have more security and confidence. Although it's funny because I think there might actually be fears people have, and I can understand that some people wouldn't do the self-development, self-liberation out of another belief or fear around, if I liberate myself, if I, like, there's some unconscious thing often, if I do that deep work, then I will lose my edge, right? I'll lose my edge. And it's interesting. What does that even mean, lose your edge? It's like there's a desire behind that to have a sense of drive and excitement and purpose and energy and accomplishment and achievement, actualization. And it's interesting. It's almost like how many people who have been quote unquote great or highly successful got there partly as a causal factor or a contributing factor was because they had their self-worth was so tied up in their success that they just fireballed themselves to that level. And so someone who's like that, maybe that's you to some degree, in some way, maybe there's a fear around, well, this is how I fuel myself. So, I mean, look, it's possible that you might realize that you have other needs besides only achievement when you begin to take care of yourself by letting go. And so you might begin to rebalance your system in the sense of recognizing the need for rest, for example, the need for downtime, and begin to shift into a different mindset, different prioritization, a different allocation of time. So I'll acknowledge that as a potential thought that you might have in entertaining the possibility of letting go, of doing the deep liberation. But the thing about liberation is that you just regain more freedom and discernment and agency, because these beliefs are creating involuntary experiences through having subconscious beliefs. By believing deep down the way to get love is to get approval, or the way to be successful is to work hard. Let's spotlight that one. The way to be successful is to work hard. Like, right, if that's like a core belief that's like emotionally charged when you say that, and then like say it right now to yourself, does it feel true? The way to be successful is to work hard. See, if that feels like a heavy weight, that means that's a subconscious belief that is always on, right? And so you're going to have that up in every moment. And so that's going to potentially contribute to you criticizing yourself if you're choosing to spend time with your loved ones, or choosing to have downtime, or choosing to get some sleep. And so that's going to create that self-criticism. And so the thing is, though, when you actually liberate yourself from that belief, it doesn't mean that the opposite. It doesn't mean that the way to be successful is to never work or something like that. That doesn't mean that the way to be successful is to avoid hard work, right? It's not saying the opposite. It's actually just saying maybe you can have freedom and discernment with this concept. So it's not running you, but you are choosing to pull out that sword from your belt when necessary, so that there are moments when you're like, you know what? Now's the week to like go at it for this extra edge, for this particular outcome, because I really desire it. Right? And you recognizing with conscious clarity about like, this is what I want, right? Versus this program because it's running because it was instilled into you by the culture, through conditioning, through your family, through the school, and you're working because it's for work's sake. And it's like, is this even actually what was actually beneficial? And of course, the suffering, the inner critics, because it's not actually possible to work hard all the time. Literally, it's impossible. The body needs to have some sort of ebb and flow, at the minimum having sleep, right? We all know that. So it's literally impossible to be working hard 24/7. It's not sustainable. So then the question is, well, how much? But the thing is, you believe that. And so there's all this, when you believe these types of beliefs about work, there's all sorts of dozens and dozens and dozens of different beliefs about work, potentially. Again, the self-worth, what makes me worthy is working hard, right? These types of things are like, if they're at the core for you, then it's going to contribute to a self-criticism and on ongoing work at the expense of other needs, potentially, and at the expense of the business, right? So this is kind of like what I'm seeking to integrate here, is that when you actually look at the most, you actually look at a lot of the top performers in history, they're taking naps, they're taking walks, they're and they're doing hobbies. They are in a state of ebb and flow and more variety throughout their day. And there's plenty of evidence about this, I like to say LeBron James sleeps 9 hours a night, Not that LeBron James is the best. Michael Jordan's definitely the best basketball player of all time. LeBron, though, is up there. So a great athlete sleeping 9 hours a night, that's like his priority, because he knows that that's valuable. So actually, when you look at I would say the top 1% of happy and successful people, will just say, I think they actually get all this. They get how having time with their family is actually nourishing them, to then re-energize them to have better energy and concentration when they are in creative, productive mode. And so you might even know all that at the conscious level, but if you still have subconscious beliefs that are in the opposite of that, then it's way harder. It's way harder to actually just work smart, not hard, and actually be the most effective for your business. To be the most effective for your business is like, for example, I had a blog post years ago called "The Discipline of Not Doing." Like, are you truly self-disciplined to the point where you're going to ensure that you give yourself rest? That you're so committed to the outcomes of the business and your achievements and your professional life and your success in that one category. We're just talking about success in this traditional, like, achievement-oriented mindset. If that is the desire, are you disciplined enough, so to speak, to not do, to take the walk, to take the nap, to do the journaling, to ensure that you are nurturing yourself with other self-care activities? Okay. So there's lots to talk about that self-care thing and working smart. But if you believe deep down that the way to be successful is to work hard, deep down, there's a subconscious part of you that believes that. If you believe what makes me worthy is working hard, if you just believe success is hard, if you just believe I'm not working enough, I'm not doing enough, I should be doing more, I'm not worthy of success, all sorts of different things. Subconsciously, those are the beliefs that are at the root. And so they're going to be activating these negative thoughts and emotions. They're going to be saying, you got to go do X, Y, and Z. You got to push through and grind what it takes to be all this stuff. And so you burn yourself out, or you squeeze your adrenals, or you sacrifice time with loved ones and all sorts of things, and you don't sleep enough, and it affects the business because you're not as effective in your decision making. You end up maybe being inefficient. You don't show up on sales conversations with clarity and confidence, security. I'm just talking about this is just one bucket here, the work ethic stuff. But like, if you're not taking care of your body because of all this work ethic, overworking stuff, you're gonna be in negative feedback loops. You don't sleep enough, so then you start eating sugar more, and then you're not delegating effectively enough. You're not having you're not making time for the creative, deep work time to have effective, concentration to like launch a new project, and you're like in putting out the fires mode and so forth. All because all these things are symbiotically related. You don't launch the new things, you don't have the energy and so forth. That's just like work ethic stuff. You can have all sorts of beliefs about money. Like, I don't deserve money, or I'll never have enough money, or the way to be safe and secure is to have money, or I'm not worthy of success. All these beliefs are all related. So if you believe things about money, then it's going to create a glass ceiling in your self-concept about how much money you can bring in. So I've heard of multiple people. I can think of multiple people right now that just clearing one or two beliefs about money, like, opened up to 5 to 10x increase in revenue. Like, if you believe rich people are greedy or something like that, if you have all these concepts about what it means to be wealthy, right? You might have all this guilt. Like, there's a lot of like collective unconscious guilt around having a ton of money, right? Because there's all this conditioning around money being the root of all evil and all this stuff. And so right there, that's going to be subconsciously affecting you. Your initial, like, it's going to create procrastination, for example, of like launching a new thing that could really bring in extra revenue. It's going to create insecurity subconsciously on a sales conversation. Now, you might say it's not that big of a deal. I can overcome that. And it's like, those beliefs are active. They are projecting out, whether you realize it or not. You can cover them up, but they're not going away. They're there. So if you believe these glass ceiling beliefs about money, then it's still possible that you could make the big sale, but how much easier would it be? How much more frequent? How much higher would your close rate be? How much would you start raising your prices? This is pretty common. Like, once you clear beliefs about money, you feel more confident about raising prices. Your beliefs about sales. The biggest one that I ever had was sales is dishonest, right? Once, not long ago, a few years ago, I'd never sold anything more than for like $100. Like, I wasn't in sales. But as I started doing more of that 4 or 5 years ago, I guess 4 years ago, I remember finding these beliefs about sales, including sales is dishonest. If you believe sales is dishonest, then you're going to have all sorts of resistance to doing it, or fears about it, or it's going to create hesitation when you ask for it's going to create anxiety or hesitation when you ask for a certain amount or whatever. So all these things affect the business experience. Whether that's work ethic beliefs, whether it's money beliefs, whether it's self-worth beliefs, whether it's beliefs about trust. You trust yourself, you trust your other people. If there's beliefs around that, trusting, and your pattern is like, a tendency to try to micromanage people, like that's not going to help anybody. And so if these parts of you are still trying to cling on to those strategies of controlling or micromanaging, then that's gonna affect all sorts of things indirectly. Whether that's the ability to collaborate effectively to launch something, whether that's maybe a teammate, there creates interpersonal friction because there's not just a happiness and a respect between people and the company. If you heal and liberate yourself from beliefs like I can't trust people, or I have to do it on my own. That's a big one. I remember clearing that one. I have to do it on my own. Or there's a right way to do things. There's a right way to do things. Whew. That one's a gnarly one. That one's a gnarly one for a lot of people. And there's so much emphasis in the school system about doing it the right way. Doing it the way the teacher said is the right way, right? So it's very common to have that belief there's a right way to do things. And so if you believe that, it's going to project out if you're in a situation of leadership and a delegation. You're going to have a harder time trusting and feeling calm and secure about delegation. So how does that affect your business? Right? All this comes down to scarcity versus abundance. It's just fear versus trust. This is the simple way to put it all. Okay. All of these blocks and beliefs when it comes to yourself and business are because parts of you have had a fear response in the past, and that fear response has not been liberated yet. And so the fear manifests in scarcity. Whether that's about self, whether that's about scarcity of time, scarcity of resources. So you can, of course, you can do all sorts of conscious gymnastics to try to convince yourself and override and overcome your fear-based subconscious. But until you actually look straight in the eye, these subconscious parts of you that have the beliefs and dialogue with them and liberate them, then we're not going to be actually getting to the root. So we get to the root, we unlearn the beliefs, they go away forever, rapidly and permanently. And then you feel better right away. And everything gets better forever. And that might sound too good to be true, but it actually is how it is. Now there could be other beliefs that you still haven't found yet. Once you clear one belief and you find more, like I did 10 minutes, like I said before the podcast, I was like, oh, I just found a new money belief. I already cleared, a couple dozen money beliefs in the past. Oh, I just found a new variation. Great. Now I'm that much more free, right? So, it's not a magic pill, but it sort of is and it isn't. It's like, yeah, we can clear that belief in 10 to 20 minutes and it's gone forever, like Santa Claus isn't real, and you feel happier. You feel freer. You feel more secure. And then you step into trust and abundance rather than scarcity, right? And so we can actually do this very fast. However, we want to get as many beliefs as we can. So it depends on your situation. Some people have a higher than average amount of beliefs. I think for me, that was the case. As someone who had a higher than average trauma responses and adversity in my childhood, I would say if you're familiar with the ACE study, the Adverse Childhood Experience Study, 10 question survey, basic question. This is mainstream. 10 question survey quiz or questionnaire asking you about your childhood. So I think the average score is about two or 3 or something. Like that's the median around there. 2.5 maybe 2. And these are like 2 out of 10, like answering yes to 2 out of 10 questions. And they're talking about more like severe, like obvious adversities, like alcoholic parent or parent was arrested or physical abuse. Like, and of course depends on how you interpret the question sometimes, but it's pretty standardized. It's not super nuanced, but it's a really great starting point. So my A score is about 5 or 6 or 7, depending on how you interpret. So I'm higher up on the bell curve in terms of my childhood adversity. So I think I've actually, before I started clearing beliefs, I had a higher number of limiting beliefs than most people. But you more than likely have some limiting beliefs. And so it depends on how much you have in order to actually liberate yourself from. But there are a finite number. You can actually get all of them cleared, potentially, theoretically, because there's a limited number of neural pathways. So you can see how liberating yourself is going to help you feel better in your personal experience and with business outcomes. Let me just highlight this a little more. So I'm just going to read I just created a new website or a page on our website, thehumanliberation.co/outcomes. I just made a list of typical personal well-being outcomes and typical business outcomes. I'll just read from this. Typical personal well-being outcomes. Quiet mind, little to no noise in head. Presence, peace, ease, and serenity in moment-to-moment life. Confidence in one's own skin, higher self-esteem. Secure and peaceful relationship with money. Clear thinking and improved decision-making. Relaxed body, taller posture, freedom from back pain. Permission to rest, spend time with family, vacation, or engage in hobby. Increased happiness. So, seems worth doing just for that, right? I'm not trying to make this like a commercial here. I'm just saying, like, liberate yourself because it'd be nice, right? whether you hire me or somebody else, the few other people who are doing similar things. I just genuinely want everyone to feel freedom and abundance and harmony and peace and security and joy and well-being and all the beautiful frequencies, so we can liberate all of humanity, right? That's my desire. So I hope that appeals to your self-interest. And I also feel very confident about this list that I just gave you. This is what happens to my clients, and this is what happens to me. This is very, very typical. It's depending on what your main issues are, right? Once you liberate yourself, these things happen. My back pain went down 70% after I cleared one belief. The belief was, it's not okay to relax. Imagine carrying that for decades, how much that's going to contribute to tension in your back, right? So those are the typical personal well-being outcomes. Typical business outcomes, I'll read from this list. Increased revenue as glass ceilings are removed. Stronger sales conversations and close rate as confidence blossoms. Increased creative action, little to no friction in starting projects. Increased delegation, less busy work, more working smart rather than grinding. Shorter execution in project launch cycles. Improved team performance through decisive leadership and happier, more abundant mindset from leaders. Launching and pitching investors, scaling and exiting. So just trying to help you see like the possibilities for yourself when it comes to your own desires. Because I'm totally aware that especially when it comes to like startup founder culture, which is a lot of people that I enjoy helping with this and desiring to help more and more startup founders specifically, but I ultimately want everyone on the whole planet to be liberated. But like the startup founder specific ecosystem and culture, it can be so much about these outcomes, right? The achievement and launching the next thing and getting the investor and scaling and exiting. These are the words, right? These are the words that we use. And that's fine. It is what it is. I get it. It's very good in many ways. What the thing is, in that world, it's sort of the laser focus is that in that paradigm in the sort of orange stage consciousness from an integral theory perspective, it's orange stage achievement oriented consciousness, and it's all about that goal of something like scale and exit, right? And so what I'm just seeking to invite is a holistic teal consciousness that's looking at all of our needs getting met in abundance, including achievement. All right. So what I'm seeking is to highlight on this podcast is that the liberation at the root will nurture all of your needs, including the achievement ones. All right. If you're experiencing massive procrastination and inner friction, and so you don't do the things you need to do to move the needle forward and do high leverage actions, then if you liberate yourself from the parts of yourself that are creating the inner friction, then you begin taking that creative action, and then the business can take off from that one achievement need, right? So I'm hoping to appeal to like that desire that you may have for in that business outcome. And I'm hoping to appeal to your desire to just feel more serenity, you know? My favorite from all of these items on these lists is the first one. I said, quiet mind, little to no noise in head. That's my favorite. It's the best when you have little to no noise in your head. It's silence. It's literally, that's what my experience is compared to 5 years ago. Right? It's little to no noise. It's just, okay, there's events happening and then there's no involuntary negative self-talk in response to events. It's just like events are happening. Now in the present moment, I'm observing that and making decisions, but we don't need to have extra noise. We can just be in the moment. It's a beautiful benefit. So you can just feel more peaceful and present. So I hope this has been useful, helping you with more vividness, see what actually is possible on the other side when you liberate yourself at the root. Liberate yourself at the root. Now again, you might say, well, it's just a lifelong journey to be doing self-development. You're never done, right? These are all beliefs. You're never done working on yourself. And it's like, well, maybe. Depends on what you mean by that. But again, there are a finite number of neural pathways. Period. Is that disputable? It's not an infinite number. So therefore, there's a finite number of neural pathways. There's a finite number of limiting beliefs that you have. And we have technology to clear each one of those beliefs very fast. And so the more motivated you become to do it, the more freedom you get. You could do it for yourself. I have a whole podcast on how to do self-therapy. I've shared, the guide that we have on how to clear one single limiting belief, thehumanliberation.co/guide. You can learn the 5 steps to clear any of these beliefs that I've mentioned. Now, the art of finding the beliefs is a little bit different skill set. And I will say most people benefit, including myself, when I first started doing this, benefit from having somebody to share this and to facilitate them. And my desire is for as many people as possible to do what I just did before this podcast. It's like, oh, I just noticed this little fear thing happened. Let me find what that belief was. Let me figure that out. Okay, it's that belief. Now I'm just going to clear it in 10 minutes. That's literally what just happened before I started recording the podcast. Now, I've been doing this sort of obsessively for the past 5 years and gotten really rapid at the process. And if you desire to do that, you can do it. I believe in everybody's ability to teach themselves things. I have a lot of passion and conviction around self-driven learning, around autodidacticism, the ability to be your own teacher. So I'm sharing this for you I'm sharing these different resources from the podcast to that guide and so forth for you to actually, if you wanted to go learn, if you had that motivation, you could actually begin to be doing this for yourself. And of course, always that disclaimer, like if you have a severe amount of anxiety and trauma and so forth, it's best to have somebody with you. If this is a new thing, you haven't had any experience with doing deeper self-development, and you have some severe trauma, then it might be, always be conscious about self-therapy, but overall, for most people, I think self-therapy is very, very doable. And that having been said, I highly recommend seeking out somebody that can help. So that's what I do. If you're a founder, if you're an entrepreneur that's interested to be done with all this noise in your head and all this inner friction, then I'm here to support you with that. If you want to try it, then just go to our website, thehumanliberation.co, and you can just click the try it button, and I will give you a session as a gift. So it'd be my pleasure for you to experience that. And yeah, that's all. I hope that you sense I guess I just desire for people to sense I think you do. I guess I'll just say it because I already started talking. I think I want people to recognize that this is meaningful to me, that this is my desire. This is my truly genuine desire, is to liberate as many inner children as possible, because that's what it's all about for me. It's all about the child. That's what inspires me, and that's what gets me out of bed every single day, is to liberate the children. And so that means the children that are inside of the adults, the children, the psychological inner child, And so I'm very passionate about this. And I wouldn't be here if I weren't passionate about it. So I'm here to serve you genuinely. And I genuinely desire for you to get your needs met. Make life more wonderful. Much love.